In the year 2002, two workers attempted to gather a sample from a stockpile. It would prove disastrous.
It would take very little of this material to put enough pressure on your chest to suffocate, and it does not take an awful lot of weight on your chest for you to take that last breath out, and you can't get another breath in.
The face of the stockpile collapsed and began to bury one of them, so the other went in to help.
Panic sets in right away. That material will overcome you very quickly. You're trying to breathe, there's so much pressure, it's almost like a car sitting on your chest.
Both workers were quickly engulfed by the stockpile and died.
They can kill you. People have been buried. It can happen instantly.
Working in quarries and pits can be dangerous. They're filled with trucks, loaders, bulldozers, and machinery that can kill you if you're not aware and responsible at all times. But one of the most seemingly benign elements of a pit or quarry can actually be among the most hazardous: stockpiles. But they weren't always seen as a threat.
When I was younger and I'd come to work with my father, I'd spend the day climbing up the stockpiles and rolling down on them. Never thought once or twice about that thing ever collapsing on top of you. Never. Today's day, you would never put anybody on a stockpile for whatever reason.
So why are stockpiles so dangerous? In a word, gravity. Pits and quarries produce all kinds of different products, from fine sand right up to larger rocks. Each one actually acts differently when we pile it, with its own unique natural resting state. This is called the angle of repose.
When you can see the conveyor, the sand or the gravel, the product, is coming off of the conveyor and just dropping. And it's forming like a pyramid. As it's falling, that's its natural angle of repose. And sand will sit at a different angle of repose than gravel.
Coarse sand rests at 32 degrees, fine crushed stone at 30 degrees, and coarser crushed stone at about 27 degrees.
The bigger pieces tend to lock together a little differently than the smaller pieces. So a stockpile like this is going to be more stable because these pieces have locked together and it would be able to maintain a steeper angle of repose. There are no fines in here, so the weather really doesn't have any effect whatsoever on this material sliding or the angle of repose changing once it is put in a stockpile like this.
In this industry, conditions are always changing. And, you know, with the weather, with the heat, with wind, it can be a different ball game, you know, every day.
In fact, weather and environmental conditions affect every product a little differently. One thing that can dramatically change the way things react is water. For example, dry sand rests naturally at about 32 degrees, but even a light rain will dampen it and act as a binder, allowing it to rest at a much steeper 40 degrees. And that can make things unstable.
So not 2 minutes ago, this pile was hanging up where the top of this pile is right now, and all of this let go, and now the base is 20-25 feet out from where it was when we started walking over this way. If anybody had been in there when that let go, and it does not give you any warning that it's going to let go, if anybody had been in there, they'd be dead. They would have been buried, and that's all there is to it. We would not have stood a chance to save them.
When they're wet, the top layer looks heavier, so it looks like it won't shift. But as things can start to dry, chunks can form, and those chunks can shift.
You can see it dribbling down here right now, and you can see how it's letting go like that. This will probably continue to fall until this pile finds its natural angle of repose again.
But with our wildly diverse weather, from dry to wet and hot to cold, there's no guarantee of that happening. Especially with our sub-zero temperatures that turn the moisture in stockpiles into ice.
In the wintertime, those piles freeze all the time. They will freeze, you'll get that crust on that material, just the outer crust, maybe 2 or 3 feet deep of frozen material.
In the wintertime, this type of thing becomes a much more major issue because you'll be able to dig into the center, which has not frozen, yet the crust is frozen. So you'll be able to dig through, and all of a sudden you end up with overhangs, and then they have to be brought down to be able to work that pile safely, or the equipment operators run the risk of the materials falling on top of them.
The safe height of any stockpile is determined by the product itself and conditions. Standoff distances must be marked and respected at all times. As always, if you don't know how close you can go, ask. Always err on the side of caution.
Stay away, stay a far enough distance away that if it does fall, it's not going to engulf you, and then add some distance to that.
Stockpiles should be located so that loaders can have open access all around each one and can safely approach each pile at 90 degrees to the face to safely extract the product.
You need to work that pile squarely all the time, so that it's not ever hanging up on you, or you don't have higher sides than other sides. The side's always working general, and it's staying at the same level all the time. The way he's digging into that pile now, where he took out that first bucket, he'll probably move over to the second side of it. See where he's going now? Now he's going to the finer side of that pile. So he's not digging in the exact same spot he did again. So now he's getting a cross mixture of that pile.
QC workers need to gather samples that represent the entire stockpile, but they should never set foot on one, and should always work from a sample pad built by a loader.
They want a mini stockpile, so you need to take a sample from the working face. You want to build another little mini stockpile at least 10 meters away.
Approach the loader operator always from the front, so the loader operator can see you coming. When that loader operator sees you coming, that's fine. You tell them you're there to take a sample. Once they know that they're there for a sample, they will work the pile exactly the way they work. They'll typically take the shipping sample, the production sample. He's going to blend it, put it on the ground, and have them check it from there.
It's the safest way to do a sample so that quality control technicians don't have to be working out of a big stockpile at all, period.
Different hazards arise from working on and around horizontal stockpiles. That is, ones built from the top down. The key word to consider here, similar to conical stockpiles, is instability.
Typically in this kind of stockpile, what we do is we dump the material back off the edge in a safe area, and then the loader comes along and pushes the material that's there over the edge. But you'll notice there's a berm around the edge.
These berms must be built and maintained by loaders and dozers to let truck drivers know where to safely stop and dump. And always adhere to one key rule: never dump when another vehicle is working at the toe.
You want to make sure nobody's in the danger zone at the bottom, because A, somebody dumping over the top, material could hit them, but B, it also makes the edge of the berm very unstable.
So, here are 3 key things to remember when working around stockpiles. 1. If you're not trained to work around them, don't. 2. Always be aware of conditions and know what hazards to watch for. And 3. Expect the unexpected to stay safe.
People are much more aware now than they ever were before, but unfortunately it took some fatalities to cause that to happen.
People have been buried, and it can happen instantly. It's not something that you mess around with. They can kill you.
Our industry here is not forgiving. You're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt hard. It's going to be either a hospital or death. It may not be in your day today, but someday it could be your day. So you need to listen to these things that we're teaching you or telling you, because that little bit of information may be the difference between you going home or you going to the morgue. Very simple.